All right, guys, it is November 20th, 2020. A lot of 20s there. Anyway, I want to do a video about my hardtop 55 again, get you all up to speed. It's been a couple of months at least that I've done a video on this car. And I have pretty good reason because I've been kicked in the nuts over and over and over by this car. Anyway, so I got a new plan. If you followed along before, I was trying to get the car ready for a couple of local shows. They ended up getting canceled for the pandemic, so I run into a couple of setbacks on the car, so I just kind of gave up. Now I did come out here and work on the car. I work on it every week, at least 2 or 3 days a week, but I just haven't been really applying myself, working, those 10, 12-hour days to get something done. So that's why it's still in the same shape it was last video. I have done some things, but it's not nothing that you'd even notice. So anyway, to get you up to speed, let me get the camera turned around here. So what I'm going to do now is try to get the car ready for Daryl Starbirds car show in Tulsa in February. Now, I looked online yesterday and checking to see if the show has been canceled for the pandemic yet. It doesn't say anything yet, but that's not to say it won't. But anyway, I've already forgot the dates. It was mid-February. I want to say it was the 19th, 20th, and 21st, I think. But anyway, that car show is in Tulsa every year. It's an indoor show. It's a 3-day event. I have always been to that car show since like 1992. I've been a few times before that when I was a kid, a few different times. But since 92, I've went every year except 2 years. One was for ice, and the other one, I think I was sick. I don't remember. But I've never personally had a car in that show. It seems like my cars are always in process, or I get one finished for it or build it for it, and I sell it. So that's the deal that usually happens. But anyway, now in that car show, it's an open car show indoor that is pretty much, they got just about every class probably you can think of, but they have one class in particular that I've always wanted to enter, and it's called the Fine Nine. So basically, you're competing on a higher level of judging. That's what I want to go after. That's when I started this build on this car, that was what I had in mind, was competing for the Fine Nine. Now, the bad part about it is, all the times I've been to that car show, it seems like there's always a grade 8 car there, or sometimes there's 2 or 3 of them there from the Detroit Auto Ram. And now that is way out of my league. I don't have the checkbook that those guys that have those cars have. I'm not to that level. I've done a lot of nice work on the car. I've done a lot of nice detail in this car, in my opinion. But as far as competing for Fine Nine, I think I could possibly maybe get 9th. That's what I'm going to go for. So anyway, that's what I'm going to do. I am going to try to compete in the Fine Nine. Now, I have found out some things about the Fine Nine that I never knew. It has to be first time shown in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So, and once you compete for it one time, you can't compete for it again. Also, I cannot enter Fine Nine and try to enter like Tri-5 Chevy. You can't do that. I would have to bring it back the next year and enter the Tri-5 category, which is probably what I'll do. But this year I want to try to do the Fine Nine, because the car, if I can get my ass in gear, I can, get it to the point to have it ready. There's really not a lot of work here, but if I keep having setbacks like I've been having, it's just going to prolong it. And so anyway, I'll get you up to speed. Pretty much, I'm going to try to make it to the Fine Nine Award class at Daryl Starbirds Car Show in mid-February. That is the plan. Today is the 20th of November, so, I have got some time, man. Today's almost over with, so I've got 9 days, and then I've got 31 days, and then I've got all of January, and then up to, a week or 2 of February. So I have plenty of time, in my opinion, to finish the car. Now, one of the setbacks I have that you have not seen is, if you'll notice, this quarter panel looks like flat black and gloss black. I had to repaint this lower side of the car all the way up here. again, because I had a big old giant piece of trash right here on the edge, and when I was sanding it to do a color sand and buff, I went through the paint. You can't just blow paint on that spot, it won't work. You have to sand everything down and respray again. So luckily I have all the stainless trim on the car. I've got a tape line I can go to instead of having to redo the whole freaking back half of the car again. So that was setback number one that really made me mad, was that one. So I got this painted, you know, a couple, 3 months ago, so no big deal there. The other one was the rear end. Now this rear end, I've covered this many times. This is a little puny 7.5 10 bolt. This is a really small rear end. I don't plan on putting this car on an autocross right now or taking it to a drag strip right now with this rear end. These are pretty weak. I mean, these are supposedly will handle like around 300 and something horsepower, but I do have a girdle on it. But my idea was, when I was building the car, I mean, I don't have a couple $1,000s to buy a 9-inch Ford right now. That's going to have to come later. So I went and got this at a local pull-apart. It's out of like a early 2000s Chevy S10 Blazer. It's narrower than a stock rear, so it fits my 9-inch wheels with my funky offset perfectly. But it's also disc brake, and it has the correct wheel lug pattern that I needed. So this was basically a temporary rear end, but I tried to make it really slick and nice. Now, what I ran into was, and I've covered this, the axle tubes are smaller than your factory rear, so I took a piece of pipe that has the ID matched the OD of this axle tube, but the OD of the piece of pipe matched the 55's factory rear. So my U-bolts fit this tight instead of being on here and being hot dog down a hallway. But anyway, I had cut the pipe in half, and I welded just the upper piece on here to take the slack out for the U-bolts. Now, I did 3 half-inch holes in it, and I plug welded it, and then I perimeter welded it. After I painted the rear and bolted it in the car and put the U-bolts on, I noticed my U-bolts were right on the edge, like an 1/8 inch from being over the edge. So I worried that if that U-bolt slipped off there, it'd cause it to come loose and could cause, you know, an accident, or, you know, tear the wheel up or the quarter panel up or something. So I just decided that since the body is back off the chassis again, since I had to repaint the car again, that I would go ahead and extend these. So what I did was I cut an 1.5 inch piece of that pipe, extended it, and then I cut a piece, I think this is like 1.25 inches long, and put it in here. I couldn't bring it all the way down like this one because I have hardware that goes in there to bolt the backing plate on. So now the U-bolts, they don't have anywhere to go, so I feel better about it now. But what sucks is I had to grind all my hard work, all my body work and paint off to get to that point. So it's pretty upsetting, and it's just a heavy setback basically. But anyway, now I got to finish my body work and get the primer on there. Now, I think the last video I done of this car, I was working on the doors, body work. All of that stuff is in final prime. The only thing that did not get final prime was the splash apron for the front of the car and the air cleaner. Now I have a little bit of putty work that I did on this. I got to finish sanding this. And the air cleaner, the putty work is underneath on the bottom, because I worried that if I put it in the show, the judges might feel under here or stick a mirror under here. So I want the bottom of that air cleaner mint too. So underneath that air cleaner has a few spots that I had to put some filler on. So I've got a final prime, the air cleaner, the splash apron, and these axle tubes. I'm not repainting the center of the rear. I'm leaving it because it's still all together and nice. I'm just going to mask off where the axle tubes are put into the carrier and just paint it, the tubes. So I have the firewall sanded and buffed. This is just stage 1. I've got the dash sanded and buffed, and I also got the glove box door inside and out sanded and buffed. I did not sand and buff the center part of this dash right here because that aluminum bow tie trim goes across here, so you won't see any of that orange peel, but the top of the dash is awesome. So now I have to go through and finish basically the rest of the back half sides of the car, the jams and all that stuff. So I got the spark plug wire dividers I made, linear plug looms, whatever you want to call them. Those are finalized, body worked, primed, sanded, and painted. They're not bolted down yet. I got the valve covers painted. There is a ton of body work in these valve covers, just making them straight. These things are freaking rough from the factory, man. I got my tubes painted, that my wiring is going to go through, so all that stuff turned out great. I had bought a stencil kit in 2013 to place on here to repaint that script black. So when I got the stencil out of the wrapper, it was kind of hard, and I think it's just too old now. So I ended up spraying the valve cover script here black, the logo, and it bled through on the edges. And I did it like it's supposed to be, where you put a couple of dust coats on and then you put like a medium coat on, and it still bled through. So I ended up wiping it off with a reducer. I bought a new stencil kit. It came in yesterday, and I'm going to go get my Iwata airbrush out of my closet, and this time I'm going to airbrush it on there, because the airbrush won't put on so much material, and I think it'll end up laying down really slick. I've seen guys do Sharpies. I've seen guys freehand that with a brush. I don't want brush lines and none of that crap. I want that almost perfect, because that black script on that orange is going to pop, and that has to be, in my opinion, it has to be nice. So anyway, that's where I'm at on that deal. Yeah, I guess that's it. My buffer, I had burned up my brushes and my buffer when I was buffing on this car. So I ended up buying some brushes off the internet and replaced my brushes in my DeWalt buffer, and now it works. So that was another setback. And so between having to respray the car, redo the rear end, and the valve cover script screwing up, it's, man, I'm telling you, mentally it just beats you down, I'm telling you. Because every time you have to redo something, it's more money out of the pocket. And let's face it, I don't have the money to come out of the pocket to begin with, let alone having to do something twice. I don't need the practice, but I always seem to end up with it. You know what I mean? But anyway, that's where I'm at, guys. I'm going to jump off here. So this is the start of the Daryl Starbird thrash, I guess you'd call it. Just in time for my neighbor to start beating the hell out of something over there.